Working Families Party, and at
Oh yeah,
some point and you should definitely have Mo on. He's
I've had
very
him on.
interesting. Okay, yeah, I mean, because I feel like we're gonna at some point need a base to where not that it all has to be about politics, it's also about culture, but it saddens me the Democratic Party is not ready for prime time.
You caught me and Joy and Reid in mid conversation. I warned Joy, I'm in a mood. I am in a mood because I am done. I'm done playing a rigged game. And I've been saying this for a while. And the game has been rigged, folks, right? And it goes something like this. When it comes to the right wing, it's civility for me, cruelty for thee, safe spaces for me, no safe spaces for thee, freedom for me, but tyranny for thee. Free speech for me to say the most hateful, vile, awful, bigoted stuff, but you better shut your mouth and you better stay in your corner and you better be grateful that we tolerate you. And you better not use your free speech to mock our new Jesus. Because I think old Jesus is Donald, new Jesus is Charlie Kirk, right? And then you see all the institutions, the corporate institutions bend the knee. ABC bends the knee, CNN bends the knee, CBS bends the knee, corporate law firms bend the knee, but we don't bend the knee, which is why we are independent. And speaking about the power of being independent and using your independent voice to fight back, I want to first and foremost give a shout out to Joanne Reid, who has a coup. And the coup is that she was the first actually, no, the first media outlet, period, to actually score a Kamala Harris interview. Kamala Harris recorded that interview with Joanne Reid a couple of days ago, and it's going to be airing tonight. Joy, tell us more about that interview.
Yeah, I'm excited. Look, this is a huge, huge, huge step up for independent media. Not even just for me by being myself and the Joy Reid Show, but for independent media, period. Because former Vice President Kamala Harris, she's on this amazing book tour for her book 107 Days, which, by the way, is a whole read. Y'all need to read it. It is full of TEAT. And we got the interview first. We actually didn't air ours first. Big ups to my friend Rachel Maddow, who actually aired her interview first. She did it live for her Monday night show. But we had already recorded our interview. So we put the promos up over the weekend because we
I'll
recorded
give
our
it to you. That's
interview.
first. First in time is first in right. Property law. So that's you were first.
That's it. That's it. That's it. We recorded our interview on Friday. We went out to LA. We literally picked up the Joy Reid Show team. Went out there. We had a whole crew. It looks amazing. You're gonna love this interview. We sat down with her. We talked about the book. We did all the things. So we actually got there before a lot of the big interviews. She did the View today, and she's doing a ton of more interviews. But for independent media, y'all, don't believe that you can only get the big interviews, the important interviews on places like CNN and Fox and ABC. No, you can also get them from independent media. We will give you the exact same interviews that you can get from corporate media, but we're going to be unfiltered, unbowed, and unbossed. And so what I want y'all to do is support Waj, support me, support Don Lemon, support all of the independent media folks who are doing the things that you need, but doing it unafraid of the consequences of a corporate boss.
And that's the title. The title is Charlie Kirk was a racist, Donald Trump is a fascist, and MAGA is a cult. You got to be blunt. Keep it real. Stop playing with the old game, right? There's no time for civility politics, especially when the game is entirely rigged, and we have to keep quiet while they literally send ICE agents to crack our skulls. And we, thankfully, are independent, so we could call it out, and we could have this real conversation. Now, please tease out, without giving too much away, but give me an amuse-bouche, as the sophisticated people say, about what Kamala told you in this specific forum, because you two are Black women and
Yeah.
you had very unique experiences in this country as Black women who have been targeted by MAGA.
100%. And I had to ask her, first of all, about the disrespect shown to her by JD Vance. I think this is one of those issues probably only I was going to ask her because I'm still mad about it. Definitely asked her about being in that car with JD Vance and Usha Vance, who, to me, as an Asian American woman who shares the exact same DNA, the same background, racial background as Kamala's mom, is disrespecting her own people just with her silence. We talked about that. We talked about how Black women felt after the election, as enraged as the 92 percenters were. We talked about the fact that she was confronted on whether or not she's really Black, quote unquote, by Donald Trump and the way she chose to react to it. We talked about The View, her appearance there. But I really want to talk, and this is something that I think, the vice president isn't excited to necessarily talk about, but she did write about it. And I think, Watch, we've got to confront this. How much blame should we be putting on Biden world and former President Biden himself for where we are today. I know folks don't want to confront it. I know a
I'll
lot of
confront it.
standard Democrats don't want to deal with it. They just want to talk about Trump. But let us be clear. Kamala Harris was exactly right. She said what Trump would do, he's doing it. She predicted it, he's doing it. But the Biden world, to me, seemed more focused on diminishing Kamala Harris in her job as vice president and making sure she didn't outshine Biden, that they did not set her up for success. And I almost wonder sometimes if some Democrats wanted would prefer to have Trump win so that they could preserve the opportunity for their favorites to run in 2028 than for Kamala Harris to win, maybe be a two-term president and block some of the other ambitious Democrats in the party. I took from the book that she felt that disrespect toward her role as vice president. Put it this way. If Joe Biden had treated Kamala Harris as his vice president the way Barack Obama treated Joe Biden, she could have won that race because people would have known what she was doing. No one would have been saying, what was she been doing for 3 years? They would have seen her accomplishments and they would have seen her. They would have actually experienced her for 3.5 years. And by the time she had to do that 107-day sprint, everybody would have known what she did, what she accomplished, and who she was. They didn't because Biden world suppressed her for 3.5 years and made her invisible. And then she had to run from that invisibility. Unfair. She's not going to say it, so I will. They mistreated her. They did not. They Meghan Markled her. They Princess Died her. They did her like Princess Di was done by King Charles, Prince Charles. And that's one of the reasons she lost.
No, I actually agree with you on this, and I haven't read the book. So, if without giving too much away of the book, does she mention this in the book? Because I've seen her tease it out in some of these passages, and also in The View and Rachel
Yeah.
Maddow. She seems to not go there, but she doesn't not acknowledge it, if you know what I mean.
Correct. She does not go there in the interviews. And in the interview, I really tried to pull this out of her, but she seems very uncomfortable with being critical, particularly of Joe Biden. She is super loyal. The book opens with a Kendrick Lamar quote: I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Obviously, she's a West Coast hip hop fan, so she starts with that quote, and she is loyal to a fault to Joe Biden. And I asked her, do you feel that loyalty cost you the election? And I'm not going to tell you what she said. Y'all have to watch the interview. But she was very reluctant to criticize him even now.
So Danielle and I, my co-host, for I think we've been doing Democracy-ish for 3.5 years. During the Biden-Harris administration, what we said early on was, "Where's Kamala Harris?" And we weren't blaming Kamala Harris. What we said is this Biden administration should elevate, this black woman, because without black voters, she would not have won. I want to remind you all, in 2020, the Biden administration went all in on BLM. The Biden administration and Democrats started talking about white supremacy. They lean into, wait for it, wokeness. And because of that, they actually got record numbers, and also because it was a pandemic and Donald Trump. But
Mhm.
by leaning into it, they rallied the base. Then Kamala Harris went MIA. And it wasn't necessarily her fault. And Danielle and I kept talking about it. Like, yo, you have this young black woman who literally is your vice president. You said you were a one-term president. Most likely you have set her up. Why don't you elevate her, like everyone else does? The corporate media, I'm going to be honest. Look, I've criticized Kamala Harris, and we will on this, telling my critiques of her, but I try to be fair. And so me and Danielle there were like, wait a second, this isn't right. Because if he's a one-term president and this is his vice president, and that's the future of the Democratic Party, because,
Mm.
they're probably going to hand the baton to her, shouldn't you elevate her? Shouldn't you protect her? The leaks that came out about her, remember that?
Yeah.
Corporate media circling like vultures around her, the way they did around Mike Pence. And then Joe Biden made two big mistakes. Joe Biden promised he would be a transitional president. He promised, folks, he would not run again. He should have 2 years ago said, I'm not running again. It's going to be my gal, Kamala. I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring her, all right? She would have had a running start. I mean, the game was rigged against her. I feel bad because you
Yes.
had inflation, disinformation, and plus you only had 2 months. The second thing that he did, the huge mistake, which I think Kamala's loyalty to Biden and this administrative ideology really hurt her, especially with Democrats, Israel Palestine.
Yes.
He was completely complicit, folks. Everyone in the administration now says gave a complete green light to Netanyahu. There would be no genocide without Joe Biden. I know Democrats don't like to hear it, but that's the case. That's the truth. And then you recall, Joy, when he told Kamala, no daylight, kid. No daylight. Where fidelity to Biden and actually upholding his legacy took precedence over this, younger black woman who was going up against Donald Trump with 2 months, a friggin' narrow runway with Democrats trying to knife her in the back. I mean, she was set up for failure. And
Yeah.
the painful part, Joy, is she only lost by 1.4 points. Your response to
It
my take.
It is absolutely wild, and I asked her about that. I also asked her if she has rethought the decision not to put a Palestinian American politician on stage during the convention, and whether a Bibi Netanyahu would be welcome in a Kamala Harris White House, because a lot of people are saying nothing would be different if she were president. And, I will leave you to listen to what she said about
Well, that's a
that.
good question. I'm glad you asked that.
100%. I had to ask her about that because the reality is she acknowledges in the book, when y'all get this book, and I definitely recommend reading it because she's a lot more forthcoming in the book than she has been when you ask her about it, right? She says that Joe Biden had a difficulty showing empathy to the Palestinian people. She says that in the book. She talks about the fact that she was the first in the administration to use the word starvation when it comes to the Palestinian people, and that the White House, she got blowback from the White House. So on that issue and on immigration, where she talks about being sent to the border, and then when she comes back with wins from the border, rather than elevate those wins, basically the White House attacked her and let the I'm sorry, didn't attack her, let the other side attack her, let the Trump people attack her and call her the border czar. They never corrected any of the lies that the Trump people were telling about her. They let them lie about her, they let them abuse her, and they stood back and let it happen because they didn't want her to be elevated and Joe Biden to seem diminished. That's it.
And the fact is that, folks, I'm gonna criticize Kamala here on Gaza because I think she deserves criticism for two big faults that she made. I again say that she was set up to fail because I want to be fair. She had 2 months to run that campaign. I
Yeah.
mean, people didn't even know who Tim Walz was, and then she had
Right.
to come out of the gates. And then she was a black Indian woman. You saw the misogyny, you saw the racism. The evidence is
Yes.
before you. Joe Biden. I mean, really, folks, he effed up. I give him credit for many of the domestic accomplishments, but his legacy will be one of failure. He was complicit in a genocide. He gave a green light. He is the one who everyone around him said his trademark empathy was not there for Palestinians. He should have elevated Kamala Harris 2 years ago. He did not. And furthermore, he seemed more interested in preserving his legacy. That will be, I think, part and parcel of his legacy, that this is a man who did not use the 4 years that he had to adequately
Yes.
prosecute Donald Trump. He did not use accountability. Too little, too late. Had weak centrists like Merrick Garland, and that centrism is what ultimately doomed Kamala Harris's campaign, folks. Because I'll remind you all, and Tim Walz admits it. And I saw, because I'm a masochist, the JD Vance Tim Walz debate. The first half of Kamala Harris's campaign took off like a rocket.
Mhm.
Kind of economic populist, right?
Yep.
Making fun of Donald Trump. Tim Walz comes out, calls him weird. Around halfway through, Joy, you remember these old school establishment folks take over. Remember
Mhm.
her
Yep.
her campaign. The economic populist message goes down. Instead of having Palestinians, transgender people, black people, who do they have at the DNC? All these white friggin' never Trump MAGA people who now get money from progressives and have very wealthy substacks. No Palestinian. Okay. And Tim Walz, in his debate with JD Vance, they neutered Tim Walz. Go watch the clips, folks. Go
Yeah.
watch that clip. He sat there and he agreed with JD Vance. He goes, I agree with this freak. And they neutered him. And then Tim Walz folks afterwards doing an audit said, I made a mistake. I should have been, they got me because I was that guy and I got closed down. So the centrists came and the corporate America came, and Kamala, who I think straddled both worlds, took the wrong advice, played it safe,
Yeah.
went with the white Republicans, the centrists, the neutered folks. She should have won because this country is just friggin' suffers from amnesia. But what's your take on that? That's my big critique of Kamala.
100%. She writes about the Tim Walz piece in her book. She talks about the fact that he warned her that he's a bad debater. She actually talks about vetting all of the different options she had for VP, saying she really wanted Pete Buttigieg, but that she worried that the country would not be ready to elect a woman who's also black, who's also Indian, who also has a Jewish husband, and a gay man with a husband and
She's not
kids.
wrong, by the way. I don't
Huh?
think she's wrong about that.
She wasn't wrong, and she's now kind of walked that back because she's getting pushback about that. But it's true. I mean, how is that not true? I mean, people don't even barely want to elect a woman. Period. Okay, so
Yeah,
I
she
mean,
was not.
clearly they weren't going to elect that ticket. So I think she's right about that. But she writes about how Tim Walz warned her he's a bad debater and that he definitely flubbed the debate and was very apologetic afterwards. I don't know if he was shook by the, as you say, the moderates who were still Biden people, who were still on top of that campaign. Jen O'Malley Dillon and those guys, those were Biden's people. And she writes about this is Biden world. And they were essentially running a Biden campaign, but with her stuck onto it. They were still based in Delaware. It was still Biden loyalists. And even Biden, the call you're talking about, the night of her debate where she mopped the floor with Donald Trump. But before her debate, before she gets to walk onto her debate stage, she takes a call from Joe Biden, low key threatening her and saying that his brother is telling him that he's hearing that she's distancing herself from him and that donors in Philadelphia don't want to donate to her. And basically, if you try to distance yourself from me, you're not going to get donations. That's Loki threatening her. And she says in the book, why is he calling and making this about himself? Now, she doesn't really go there in the interviews, but in the book, y'all, I'm telling you, she tells you what they did. They wanted her to basically be Joe Biden in a wig. And
Yep.
that is how they wanted her to run. She's running with Liz Cheney.
Yep.
Liz Cheney! Instead of running as herself. Remember that when she ran in 2019, she was to the left of Biden. She was Green New Deal lady. She was the one who's like, Trump is a sex offender like the ones I used to prosecute. She was a whole different kind of candidate. They dragged her to the middle. And she knew that, I think in her heart, she knew it was not, well, I don't know what she felt in her heart because she doesn't really say, but she talks about the ways in which they undermine her. I think you're 100% right. This neoliberalism, and to your title of this live, they know Trump is a fascist. Who knows better than the people who are in the White House, knowing the power that he could wield, the levers he could wield, than the people who are running against him and who are in office? They knew he was a fascist. They should have done everything in their power to get her over the line. And the thing that she needed was a united party, united behind who she is, not behind the guy who the country is rejecting. All the polls show people despise Joe Biden. True or not, fair or not, people didn't like Joe Biden, and his Gaza policy was such a moral disaster that it was
It
hard
is a moral
even for
disaster.
me to say I could tell anyone they had to vote for Joe Biden. And you know how much I despise the Trump MAGA movement. But I even said to friends and family, especially if they're Palestinian, I cannot tell you morally that I'm ordering you to vote for this man, even though I'm going to hold my nose and do it. So the reality is the immorality of what Biden was doing should have been clear. And we knew we were facing fascism. And yet you have all these Democrats in Biden world seeming to prefer to deal with a fascist just so that they think in a normal election in 2028 they could get their person in. I think that is completely irresponsible. They fell asleep at the wheel and they let us go here simply because they didn't want that sister to become president and stand in their way. I don't like it. I hate it. I hate it for us. I hate it for her. And I know she's distraught about it, but this is where we are.
This is where we are, and I saw a clip from The View where she talked about she was very distraught. She mentioned when they found out that she was going to lose, it was one of the worst days of mourning for her, comparable to when she lost her mother. And it was
Yes.
less to do about her. Obviously, she's pissed off, but she knew what a disaster Trump will be for the country, and she
Yes.
couldn't sleep. That's what she said, right? And
That's
I
it.
think I know people don't like hearing this, and I'm going to connect the dots. And I've said this before each time Joy's on, and this is where we get a lot of hate, but I don't care. I just don't care. I'm not playing the rigged game anymore. The two enduring sins of this country are white supremacy and
Yes.
capitalism, racism
Yes.
and greed. And you see it rearing its head again and again and again. And not just through Trump, but also through Democrats, through the
Yes.
establishment, through corporate America, and through centrists. They would rather deal with Donald Trump than deal with a black woman. They would rather deal with Andrew Cuomo than Zoran Mamdani, who's going to be the next mayor of the New York City. They would
Yep.
rather sanitize and do a hagiography of Charlie Kirk, a white man who spent his life dividing young people, inspiring their worst demons to come out, who attack black women, black people, Muslims, immigrants, than actually confront the truth of his legacy and speak out about his hate. Instead, 95 Democrats, Joy,
Oh,
led
Lord.
by Hakeem Jeffries. And I'm going to be on this, folks. I know you all don't like it. I'm going to bring the receipts because I believe, connecting the dots, if you all think that this Democratic Party, the party that sabotaged Kamala Harris, the party that is about abundance, that the 95 Democrats who voted with Republicans to honor Charlie Kirk are going to get us to the finish line, are going to take us to the promised line, are going to bring about progressive reform, you are mistaken. They are going to lose, and even if they win, it'll be more of the same, and we're going to get screwed. The 95 Democrats, led by
Mm.
Hakeem Jeffries, who voted along with Republicans to honor Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day.
I have to say, first of all, and Jasmine Crockett is taking heat for saying this, but she, like us, is we're not here to sugarcoat the truth for y'all. I raised 3 humans. I'm not gonna raise y'all. The MAGAs who are in the comments or who mad at me and are mad at Watch, get over it. Your mama raised you. I'm not gonna do it again. I ain't breastfeeding no more children. You are not children. You're old enough to hear the truth. You're an adult. Just face it, okay? Your movement is racist. MAGAism is racist. It is white Christian nationalism. If that hurts your feelings, that means you must know it's true, okay? If you are not a racist, then somebody talking about racism will impact you because you know you're not racist. So that ain't me, okay? So if you feel it when you hear the word white supremacy and white nationalism, if that hits you in your spirit, then that says more about you than it says about us. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. Second thing, only 2 Black people voted among those 95. And that's what Jasmine is getting in trouble for saying. It was a majority set of white moderate Democrats that threw Black people, Muslims, trans people, gay people, women, and every other target that Charlie Kirk used his ministry, as they're now calling it, to attack. If you are supposed to be a civil rights leader, as Glenn Beck has said that Charlie Kirk was a civil rights leader, but I can't quote you at work without getting fired. What kind of civil rights leader is that? I can quote Dr. King. I can throw a rock at anything Dr. King said. And even without context, without hearing the full speech, you will understand what Dr. King meant. I can throw a rock at anything Dr. King said because he's a civil rights leader. Any of his public comments are defensible, even in extraction. I can take a small piece of Dr. King, and say Dr. King's sentence, just a sentence, and even out of context, it's worthy of him being called a civil rights leader. If I throw a rock at everything your leader said, and again, this does not mean that either Wajahan or I believe he should have been killed.
No,
You
no.
don't hear people on the left say kill people. You know who says kill people? That dude from Fox who said euthanize the homeless. The
Yep.
right is constantly talking about who should be killed. They're the ones who give bomb threats to HBCUs because one white man killed another white man. We're not the ones doing it. You're the ones on the right who talk about how many guns you have and say, bring the Civil War. We got all the guns. That sounds like y'all are violent. Okay. But if you are going to tell me that man was a civil rights leader, I should be able to quote him at work without getting fired. Why is it that Karen Atia got fired from the Washington Post, and the only time she mentioned Charlie Kirk was a quote from him?
Mm-hmm.
How is he a civil rights leader then? And if that is who you choose, everyone gets to choose their own heroes. I'm not even saying right wingers can't make him their hero and their martyr. You can do that. This is still America for now. You have the right to lionize and anyone you want. But what you're not going to do, and what you don't have the right to do, is use my tax dollars to elevate neo-Confederate heroes. Just like y'all did after the Civil War when you put up statues using Black people's tax dollars because you wanted to lionize Robert E. Lee, who was a traitor to this country, but who stood up for slavery and who fought and killed and died and was willing to die for slavery. Y'all used Black people's tax dollars to put up statues to him, and then did the Tiki Torch March when we tried to have him taken down, because that's our tax money too. Black people are still citizens of this country. And what you're not going to do, including you, Hakeem Jeffries, and you're the leader of the Democratic Party in the House, okay, but you should not be using taxpayer resources to elevate someone who did not respect all of the taxpayers, all of the citizens of this country. I think that is wrong. I think it's bad politics. I think it was a mistake.
Preach. That was a sermon, and I completely agree. And I refuse to sanitize Charlie Kirk. I refuse to engage in this hagiography. I refuse to whitewash him and his legacy of hate. I refuse to call him a saint. I refuse to call him a martyr. And while I do that, like Joy, I have consistently condemned the use of political violence. Before there was any suspect or any motive, I condemned it. But I want to keep, folks, people forget we live in the United States of Amnesia. Before there was any suspect, Donald Trump took to the world stage and blamed who? The radical left, all of us.
Right.
And the next day, the entirety of Fox News, Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfield, a comedian like Jimmy Kimmel, Laura Ingraham did what? They blamed the left. And there were death threats against me, against others, right? Blaming the left. And then there was Brian Kilmeade talking about just straight up killing all the homeless. And then there was the calls of civil war, right? Their own words. The tweets
Yes.
are out there. War, civil war. And then even after Tyler Robinson, a white man, a 22-year-old white man from a Christian conservative Trump voting family, is the suspect, they still blame them and they and us and Antifa, folks. It's a rigged game. No, it's white
Yes.
on white crime. It was one of yours. And then, as Joyce said, friggin' black colleges are getting strays. You're like, yo, what did we do? They're like,
Right.
nope, instead of looking at the mirror and confronting white supremacy, which is the number one domestic terror threat in the world, the DOJ last week scrubbed the study. They scrubbed the study that the number one domestic terror threat for the past decade in America, the GOAT, nothing else comes close. Islamic extremism doesn't come close.
Nope.
Left-wing extremism doesn't come close. The
Nope.
number one GOAT, coinciding with the elevation of a certain individual in politics. I wonder who. I wonder who. The number one domestic terror threat is right-wing extremism, which parallels with and actually coincides with white supremacist terrorism. So they have undone that and instead elevated Charlie Kirk, made him into a martyr. It's like the Horst Wessel moment, the Reichstag fire moment. And this is a man, like Joy said, what we do is we simply quote him. I simply bring out the receipts. I say, this is your king, a man who said that black people were better off during segregation.
Mm.
This is the man that you think is a saint, a person who said that MLK was a horrible person and the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. This is a person that you've elevated and forced the country to mourn in an appropriate way, or else who said on Twitter, Islam is the sword used by the left to slit the throat of America. That was on September 9th. Not to mention the fact that, he supported the white replacement conspiracy that has radicalized terrorists to commit violence. Not to mention the fact that in death, Charlie Kirk mocked George Floyd and called him, quote, a scumbag. Charlie Kirk friggin' literally asked his followers to pay for the bail of David DePape, another Trump voter who almost killed Paul Pelosi. This is a man who supported the January 6th insurrection. And now, and this is where I want to our white colleagues, the Ezra Kleins of the world,
Mhm.
who are telling us, Joy, because I think it's all connected. They told us to get in line. They told us to shut up about Palestine. They said, forget about the woke. They said this during Kamala Harris, the second half of the campaign. And then after Donald Trump won, what happened? I keep receipts. Gavin Newsom on his
Yeah.
podcast, who did he invite? Charlie Kirk, Steve
Mhm.
Bannon, agreed with them, right? What did Elisa Slotkin say? Stop being woke. They threw transgender people under the bus. They threw immigrants under the bus. They voted for the Laken Riley Act. They kept quiet as pro-Palestinian activists were friggin' abducted. Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeza
Mhm.
officers. No one went there. And they say this. This is what they say. Shut up, darky. You shut your mouth. You shut your mouth. It's either going to be us or Donald Trump. And you're not going to vote for Donald Trump. So you shut your mouth and you vote for Kamala Harris, whoever tell you to vote for. And now they're saying you shut your mouth and you memorialize Charlie Kirk the right way because we don't want to piss off the right wing. Sorry for my rant. Your take on what I said.
Well, I mean, the reality, I'm trying to find the quote really quickly because I don't want to misquote Dr. King. I'm trying to look for it very quickly. But, Dr. King talked about the danger of the white moderate
Oh, I
who,
know. The letters from Birmingham jail. Right, right, right.
yes,
I'll get it for you.
grab that quote because what he talks about is people who prefer peace to justice. They want quiet. They want us to wait a little while longer and be patient while we wait for liberation. That
Can I
the
quote him?
rush to liberation, your sort of thirst for liberation. I don't know if you have the quote.
I got it.
Go
First,
for it.
I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the KKK, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who
Yes.
prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive piece, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, quote, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Martin Luther King, letter from a Birmingham jail.
Amen. And, I just did this Medgar and Murley book. And one of the things that Charles Evers used to say, Medgar Evers' older brother, is that there were three kinds of white people in the South, white folks, he used to say, in the South. There were the kind that would kill you just as soon as look at you. There were the kind that were nice and that would actually stand up for justice. And they were, he said, the smallest of the three groups. And then there were the biggest of the three groups, the white people who would just look the other way and not do anything while they killed you. And it was those white folks who just stood on the sidelines and watched the mean white folks lynch you and kill you, that he said were the ones that he despised the most because they knew it was wrong, but they just didn't care enough to lift a finger. They couldn't be bothered to do anything about it. And the Ezra Klein position that merely being willing to debate in and of itself means you're doing politics the right way, even if what you're claiming to debate is whether trans people are real at all, whether Black people are inherently violent, somehow genetically predisposed to crime. That is your debate. Your debate is whether women have any purpose other than childbirth, whether a child who was impregnated via rape ought to be forced to give birth. These quote unquote debates don't have a moderator, don't have a set of facts that are agreed upon, and are generally a 30-year-old man arguing with an 18, 19-year-old freshman. Just because you're doing that exercise, because you're going from college campus to college campus and quote unquote debating young people who have barely formed their own belief systems, but you're trying to debate them into submission by essentially taking your right-wing ideology to them and calling your, with all of your TV cameras behind you and all of your infrastructure behind you and Foster Freeze giving you $4.7 million and millions of dollars from all of these big donors. Remember, it was multimillionaires and billionaires that built Turning Point USA. He was the face because
That's
you
right.
had Rush Limbaugh aging out and him, really being able to red pill older white folks. You needed a younger version. This was not something he, as an 18-year-old, created. It was a 72-year-old man, Bill Montgomery, a Tea Partier who ultimately died of COVID because he wouldn't wear a mask or get vaccinated. I don't know if he got vaccinated or not, but I think he was an anti-masker. That guy is who paid to create this organization. Don't you ever ask yourself, how did an 18-year-old who dropped out of junior college suddenly run an $80 million a year organization? Where'd he get the money? Well, he didn't have it. He doesn't come from a family with $80 million. He got it from a rich Tea Partier, because he was willing to espouse the rich Tea Partiers' views when nobody on a campus would have listened to the Tea Party old guy. So it's the young guy who comes to the campuses spouting the same beliefs. And you have to understand, a member of Congress hit me to this, and I forgot about it. Turning Point USA was actually not successful in the beginning years. It actually, because its purpose was to preach free market conservatism, to preach the free market and capitalism on these campuses, to try to stop young people from becoming too woke and too progressive and too anti-capitalist. That is what he was originally debating about on these campuses and pushing. It was something like Campus Crusades for Christ, which is the very religious version of it. When it took off was during the pandemic. When now all of a sudden he has these captive audiences on the podcast he created where he could just pump their minds full of this right-wingery. But what was the message by that point? Racism, misogyny. You young men who are frustrated because you can't find a girlfriend, it's because of feminism. The feminazis, remember, that's what Rush Limbaugh used to call them. It's these feminists who are refusing to have babies with you, refusing to marry you. Suddenly it's the gays, it's the trans. He starts doing basically Rush Limbaugh's act. That's how he took off. And that very well paid organization that was also run by, what is this guy's name, who is a very strong proponent of Israel, who also pumped money into this organization. But it was contingent on him remaining also very pro Israel. And so he was being funded. The majority of the money Turning Point USA was bringing in was actually coming from donors, very
Yeah,
wealthy donors, not from advertising on YouTube. And so you just have to understand that when you're looking at people like him or Ben Shapiro, there's a bunch of money behind them. There are these brothers
that's
called
right.
the Wilkes brothers in Texas who largely fund Shapiro. So they're getting money from these very rich, these billionaires who want to make the country more conservative. Why? Because they want to make money. Why does RFK Jr. want you to not take Tylenol? Well, you know what? I bet you there's some supplement companies off to the
Oh
side that are
yeah.
going to make money on that. Why do they want to shut down the post office? Because they want to invest in private ways for you to get your mail and pay them. Why do they want you to not trust science? Because they want to sell you quack theories. They want to sell you ivermectin and other shit. You think they don't have some ivermectin stock? You think they're not going to make money off of this? All of the stuff they're doing is because this small group of billionaires is trying to enrich themselves. And the easiest way to get white folks on board with this bullshit is to tweak them on race, to say blacks are taking your shit. Women won't obey you. Gay people are taking away our country and ruining it. Them trans people are playing sports, gonna fuck up your daughter's life. They're
Yep.
trying to get especially white Americans to be afraid all the time and destabilized all the time so that they will go fascist so these people can become trillionaires. If you don't see that this is a grift, if you don't see this shit is rigged, I don't know what to tell you because you're not paying attention.
The two enduring sins of America, white supremacy and capitalism, racism and greed, intertwined together, and the manifestation of that is our modern day pharaoh, Donald Trump,
Yeah,
and the MAGA oligarchy. Everything is a grift. Tom
yeah.
Homan, literally,
50
literally
grand.
in an FBI sting, accepting $50,000 of cash in a Cava bag, and then yesterday Laura Ingraham asked about it. Hey, he didn't deny it. He goes, "I didn't do anything criminal."
But
It's
wait, what?
everything's a
How
grift.
knew? Who knew that all of those folks who are getting rousted in the street, baby, just get $50,000, put it in a camera bag, and hand it to Tom Homan, and you can go free, y'all. This man you can buy him for 50 grand. You don't want to get caught by ICE? You guys better get him some money. This man said, "Look, I'm gonna get you some cash. I'm gonna get you some contracts because we about to arrest these brown people. You want a piece of that? 50 grand."
You know what I would do? I'd say, Tom, I'll give you 100, 50 to protect my family, 50 to go after Melania. And I think
But
you do
wait,
it
if they take the baby too, if they both have to go to Slovenia, how much is it gonna cost us? If they take Trump
150
too.
because 50 is not that much. So Tom's like 150. Okay. Tom Homan, who I call concrete as a human being, it's all a grift. It's all racist. It's a cult. It's a cult in service of the oligarchy. But to connect the dots, also, Joy, look at how money and race intertwine, right? And how the establishment, in my opinion, folks, I know we could talk about the Democrats. You all don't like it. Well, we keep it real here, folks. I want to call the Democratic Party. I want to sharpen the tool. I want to make them actually, progressive. I want them to be for reform and accountability. I want them to win elections. If
Yeah,
they go by what they did in 2024, Kamala lost. In 2020, they won because, I don't know, probably a pandemic. In 2016, they lost. And right now, this abundance movement that's come out, the centrists, they're going to lose. They do not want reformation. They want restoration.
yeah,
They want to go back to a time of neoliberalism where white rich men and their buddies would be at top, and maybe they'd give us a few crumbs, right? And I've said, Joy, and some people might not like hearing this. And I think the Jimmy Kimmel episode reveals it. White lives matter more in America. White tears matter more. White rage matters more. White grievance matters more. It's probably 100 to 1. And I'll give you an example of this. Donald Trump has been abducting pro-Palestinian activists.
yeah,
Donald Trump has been abducting and sending to be tortured brown people. Donald Trump has gone after transgender people, immigrants, legal immigrants, Mahmoud Khalil, and Democrats kept quiet. Let's be honest, I keep the receipts. They kept quiet. It was Chris Van Hollen who went by himself, senator from Maryland, and said, I will not leave El Salvador until you show me proof of life. after Chris Van Hollen did that, a few Democrats went to Louisiana and got proof of life of Mahmoud Khalil and Rameza Ostrich. I just want to keep it real, folks. They were hella slow on this. Lake and Riley Act, they said, let's go after the undocumented immigrants. We'll help you pass the Lake and Riley Act.
Yeah.
Let's go after the woke. Let's go after the transgender. Gavin Newsom threw transgender people under the bus when he talked to Charlie Kirk, and all the right wing said, oh my God, Charlie Kirk, he dominated. He got Gavin Newsom to bend the knee. And why do I bring this up with Jimmy Kimmel? When Jimmy Kimmel, a rich, popular Hollywood comedian, white man, once he was canceled, then, then Joy, the rest of America was like, wait a second. They're going after Jimmy Kimmel. Huh. They could go after me. Your take on my take.
I totally agree. And I think that, first of all, I think a couple things to unpack here. One of the reaction to what happened to Jimmy Kimmel versus what happened even with Stephen Colbert, right? When that happened with Stephen Colbert, I think that was the first time that a lot of white Americans said, whoa, this isn't just like Joy's gonna get fired or, whatever. This is like serious. They took it a lot more seriously when it was Colbert. And you did see a lot of the media folks and the Hollywood folks say, hold on a second, this is too much. And then there was, this sort of a moment. I don't think there was as many cancellations. But then when they came for Jimmy Kimmel, people got serious and started this real campaign to do like a Target boycott style action against Disney ABC. And hit them in their bottom line. That, by the way, that is the way that you exercise power over these people. They
Absolutely.
only really respond to economic warfare, and that is why the black folks who were doing the Target boycott have been so successful, because we're hitting Target right where it hurts, right in their bottom line. That's what they understand. They really don't understand any other language because all they care about is money. Let's just be clear: deregulation and tax cuts and money. They just don't care about anything else. Humanity, none of that shit. So yes,
And
and
also,
I do.
Joy, real quick, I always want to bring this receipts. The economic buy-in and the economic boycott led by predominantly black activists. It was a boycott of Target, a buy-in at Costco, and it was
Yes.
so effective that the 11-year CEO of Target finally had to resign because the sales went down. Continue.
Down. And they've closed stores. I mean, there are stores that the Target that's out here by me, it used to be the parking lot was so jammed, you'd have to park almost like a mile away to get in. That you can go up there any time of day. If you want to go to Target right now, the one here, you can go and walk in and out. This is a very black area that I live in, and they ain't going in there. So they have destroyed Target. But by the way, the CEO, they gave him a cushy seat on the board, so he's not really hurting. But the reality is, when white America lost their minds about Jimmy Kimmel, they showed the power of what they could do if they chose to organize on behalf, as you said, of marginalized people the way they organized for him. I think that this is a lesson, and I've said it before. We got our 40 percenters. If y'all are in the spicy whites group and you guys are the ones who voted with Kamala, this is your time. This is your moment. You've all wondered, what would you do during the civil rights movement, particularly if you are a white American? Here's your chance. You all showed what you can do when you're good and mad. And y'all were mad about Jimmy Kimmel, and you all took $2 billion out of the pockets of Disney ABC like that. But by the way, they're also pressuring the ladies from The View.
That's
Those
right.
are women and women of color mostly. Are y'all going to take action on behalf of those women? Washington Post just fired Karen Atia. Have you canceled your Washington Post subscription yet?
I did.
Are, this is the test. The test is you all have shown what you're capable of. Some of you have shown what you're capable of by filming those ICE agents who are taking people. But we have a whole bunch of people missing from so-called Alligator Alcatraz. We don't know where they are. Who is going to stop going to Florida on vacation? Who is going to go after that state and punish them for what they did to those brown people? Are you all going to exercise the economic power that you have? Because we black folks are doing our part when it comes to Target. We are boycotting. We are canceling subscriptions. You all need to show us your mettle because we know what you're capable of because you did it for Jimmy Kimmel.
And you know what? I've said this before, and Danielle, my co-host, I said it's time for whites to show up. Whites got to lead.
Your turn.
The rest of us, I'm serious, it's going to be all of us. It's going to be a multiracial, multicultural coalition of the willing, but white people, you have to be on the front line. You have to be the ones leading it. We got to take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our babies. We got to protect ourselves from ICE and the military and the National Guard. But we did the right thing. We showed up and voted for Kamala Harris. Even, yes, the Muslims and Arabs, even though the Democratic Party humiliated them. I cannot tell you how many stories of utter humiliation where they said, shut up, shut your mouth and get in line. And they didn't even bring a Palestinian speaker. Even then, a majority of Muslims still voted and did the right thing. It was the white voters who said, nah. And even a majority of white women, I know you all don't like to hear this, 45% of you, Queens. But the others, every single election that Donald Trump has been in, the last three elections, has been a majority of white women who've gone for Donald Trump. So now it's for the whites because he's effing the whites. Those white soy farmers who voted for Donald Trump, some of these poor guys are killing themselves because China, for the first time, is buying soy not from America, but from Brazil. These people are literally reduced to praying, Joy. They said, we have nothing else but to do but pray. So we need these whites to come out because this country, folks, you saw it this week. White lives matter more. White grievance matters more. White tears matter more. So you whites, you have so much more power. So much more power. Your white
So much
skin is
power.
like, ooh, it's like
By
it's
the
like
way, watch. I don't mean to cut you, but I don't know
yeah.
if anybody watched the insane speech that Donald Trump did. It was somebody described it as Muammar Gaddafi without the charm.
But at UN
Today.
today,
Yeah, at the
yo,
UN
it was
today.
terrible.
It was
Terrible.
terrible. But one of the things that I really noted is Donald Trump began his payback or continued his payback of his oil and gas oligarchs at that meeting. To your
Yep.
point of whose lives matter, he essentially said, F any kind of green energy. We are about coal and oil and gas, and we are here to export more dirty coal, oil, and gas to you, Europe, if you want it. He's basically saying we are a marketplace for dirty energy, and we are no longer an open place for immigrants who are not white. He basically said Europe should be for the Europeans. Y'all need to stop these brown immigrants coming in. We stop the brown immigrants from coming in here, and y'all need to copy us, and that Europe is going to fail if they don't do it. It needs to be white only European and American countries shutting off non-white immigration and tripling down on oil and gas polluting the country. He said nothing about American farmers. He never said we've got all these great farm products that are
Nope.
available to send to all of you. We have all these farmers who are no longer sending their stuff to US aid. Won't you take them, Europe? Won't you take our corn and soybeans? He didn't say that. The only thing he stood up there and sold to the world is coal,
Yep.
oil, and gas. The
It's
end.
all grift. And if you don't believe Joy, just listen to it. I'm like, it can't be that bad. Then I saw it. I'm like, it's even more unhinged. It's like your kind of like diminished racist grandfather being given the microphone at a wedding, and everyone is like, please get him off. But he ends up being the most powerful person on earth. I mean, I'm serious. Listen to that speech. It's a rambling, deranged, angry, vindictive racist who just sits there and like, it just does basically Festivus. It was just his another Festivus for him. And I want to say, I want to ask you one last question, but I want to remind people just to put a pin on what Joy was saying. They came after Joy and Reid. They came after Katie Fang. They came after
Yes.
Mehdi Hassan. They came after Karen Attiah. She was on my show, and Karen said to this day, she has not received an invite from a major news channel or program to talk about her getting fired because
Wow.
they're still so scared. She said her team has reached out. That's why I waited. I know Karen. I said, you first go do 60 Minutes and CNN, then I'll talk to you. She goes, no, watch. You're like one of the first people who reached out to me. They haven't reached out to me, right? They have come after all of us. And Joy was on her own. She rebounded, was successful. Katie rebounded. I told Karen she'd rebound. She's got a whole bunch of subscribers. But bring that type of energy for the rest of us because we show up for you. You have to show up for us. We're all in this together. And I hope,
Yeah.
especially the privileged and the white, it's not just white, but also the wealthy blacks and the browns. You thought you'd be safe too. You thought you'd be safe. And I warned you that fascists will come after you because once you get out of your gated community and once you step out of your Tesla, you know who you look like?
Hmm.
Me and Joy. You look like
Yeah.
me and Joy, and it's not going to protect you. Last question I ask is I believe, just using Jimmy Kimmel as an example, Democrats who I think are feckless and weak with the leadership right now, I said it, folks. Um, I think they should shut it down. It is time for us to shut this country down. Economic boycott and shut down the government. Democrats have an opportunity, I think, next week to not fund this government, which is a source of oppression and being used as a tool of fascists right now to crush us. Your take, Joy.
And by the way, they don't have to shut the government down. All they have to do is do nothing. Republicans control the government. Y'all don't have to vote with them. Just walk away, go home, take a nap, hug a tree, go to your backyard, plant a garden. You don't have to be there. Let them fund the government. They claim that they're all powerful, that all they need is Elon Musk and Donald Trump and prayer. Their right wing Jesus is supposedly protecting them. They don't think they need us. They don't want us in the country. They don't want our views. They don't want they don't want us to participate. So you know what? Run it yourselves then. If I'm the Democrats, my only job would be to do absolutely nothing because it's not on me to fund the government. If you think you can fund the government, Speaker Johnson, using only prayer, go for it. I do not believe that Hakeem Jeffries should provide a single solitary vote. And the other reason I think you've got to let the government shut down is that that's the only way to deny Donald Trump the funds that he is going to use to fake prosecute Letitia James and try to
Yep.
bankrupt her by having to deal with some sort of insane nonsense case when the same mortgage situation, the head of the Fed did it too. Everybody else does the same thing, and they're trying to treat her like a criminal. They need that money to prosecute her. They need the money to prosecute whatever other Democrats. They want to prosecute Adam Schiff.
Yep.
They need that money to run
Homie.
ICE. You want them to stop dragging brown people off the street and throwing them into vans? Deny them the money. They still would have to use if they don't have any money, they can't do it. You've got to allow this country also to experience the fullness of what they voted for. It's the only way they're going to truly understand. If Democrats keep saving America from the things that Americans vote for, and you keep saving them from the things Republicans are threatening to do, you're not going to get any credit, Democrats, for saving the country from Republicans. You're going to get blamed for anything that goes wrong anyway. So you might as well sit back, let those sons of bitches run the country by themselves. You don't need to be involved. This is a fascist regime. Let the fascists run the country and show the country what it looks like when you have unexpurgated fascism unleavened by assistance from Democrats. You don't need to help them. They don't need your help and don't want it. So why do you keep coming in and rushing to save the day? This is insane. Democrats have this impulse to save Republicans from themselves. I don't understand it. And if Democrats give them one single solitary vote, then I think we as voters have a right in the primaries to weigh in on whether we want these Democrats to be in power anymore, all the way to the top. Anybody can be primaried. And why I like the Working Families Party and why I love the way they do politics is they run alongside the Democratic Party in the state of New York and in 5 other states. And when you go into a primary, you have a chance to vote for either the Working Families or the Democrat, and they're the same people normally. And to win in New York, you have to get both endorsements. So Chuck Schumer has to get the Working Families and the Democratic Party endorsement in order to win. AOC has both. They run as both. This is the way you could use your power, everybody. If you're sick of this party, in that primary, you might want to think about Working Families or think about some way to just vote for a primary challenger because the only power you have is in the primary. By the time you get to the general, it's the D or the R, and the R's have decided to be fascist. You don't want that. So exercise your power in the primary. The Republicans did it with the with the Tea Party movement. Tea Party took over the Republican Party in 2 election cycles. 2010 and 2014. It took them 2 election cycles to take over, and then the Tea Party movement was converted to MAGA. That is how you exercise power. Stop just taking these Democrats because they're incumbent as if you have to vote for them. You don't. In the primary, anyone can be removed. Anyone. And Democrats need to fear their own base the way Republicans fear theirs. Otherwise, they're never going to change.
2014, right here, Eric Cantor was supposed to be the future of
That's
the
right.
Republican Party, and then David Bratt, an outsider, came in and unseated him, and that
Correct.
was the Tea Party revolution that led to Donald Trump. And we need to have an economic populist leader, an
Yeah.
economic populist message that lifts all of us up, including Black people, immigrants, women, LGBTQ, workers, Muslims, white folks, all of us, making America affordable again,
Yeah.
taking America back from the broligarchy. Whoever runs on that message, folks, I'm telling you, that's your winning message.
That's
Easy,
it.
layup, dunk. But you need the right person willing to stand up and fight for something.
My
And so
dog
here we
agrees.
are. Yeah.
Nala agrees.
Donald
Nala
Trump.
said,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Charlie Kirk is a racist. Donald Trump is a fascist. MAGA is a cult. But we have the numbers. We have the numbers. And Joyanne Reid, we have almost 3,400 people watching us. Amazing. Please shamelessly promote yourself. And again, for the 3,400 people watching, we're going to have this up on my Substack and Joy's Substack later on today. We connected the dots. We talked about Joy's fantastic Kamala Harris interview, which premieres.
It premieres tonight at 7 p.m. at thejoyreidshow.com, which is my YouTube channel, my and Jason's YouTube channel, our little company. We are independent media. We snagged the interview of the season first before any of the big dogs. So please watch our interview with Kamala Harris tonight at 7 p.m. on thejoyreidshow.com. And also please subscribe when you get over there. And then also please subscribe to my Substack, which is joyannereid.com. That is what we call Joy's House. Yes, this will be posted live on Waj's channel and on my channel. And then it will be repurposed on Fox, probably in their A blocks, because they really hate it when Waj and I get together and we provide them free content. We should really bill them, Waj. I think they should have to pay us a fee.
I think so. We live rent free in their head. Each time Joy comes on, my God, they get pissed and they use this. They use our content to create content. So just give us a fee. Give us a shout out. You're welcome. Fox and New York Post and the right wing, you're welcome. Folks, we're going to have this entire conversation up. And I just got informed while we were talking that I'll be speaking to you on your show Friday night at 7:40 p.m. So we'll be back.
We have to keep the content going because they don't have a lot of ideas. And so they need our content to fill their airwaves.
Yeah, or it's just going to be reruns of Family Feud and Kid Rock. And you know what? If that's your tea, drink that tea and be bitter. For folks, I'm petty. It was Joyanne Reid, her hat petty. We kept it real. This is the Left Hook. I'll be back in 5 minutes with another great progressive voice, Jess Craven from LA, and she's talking about how we're winning on the streets. So Jess Craven, fantastic voice, fantastic activist. She'll be on in 5 minutes, folks. Again, Joyanne Reid had the first. She had the first interview with Kamala Harris, even though you saw it on her on The View and you saw her on Rachel Maddow. Joyanne Reid and her team actually nabbed it first. They're airing it tonight. You got two black women who the white establishment tried to silence, but you can't keep them quiet and you can't keep us quiet because we have the numbers. Be kind to each other, folks. Be decent. Subscribe if you can. It's going to be a long walk. It's going to be death through 1,000 cuts. Fascism doesn't get taken out with a haymaker. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a role to play, but please first, be informed. And then secondly, use your voice. Do not speak out. Do not be cowed. Speak out, speak out, speak out. Mock and humiliate these people. They hate being mocked. And the final thing I'll say is if you think they're coming after Palestinians and black people and undocumented and that's it, you ain't paying attention. Get woke. Fascists come for everyone. So we have to stay united. Thank you all for watching. And please don't be a fascist. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, man. Take care. See you
Bye.
soon.